The crypto market is once again entering a climate of optimism. The perception of states, institutions, and investors toward cryptocurrencies has completely changed compared to a year ago. While this momentum initially benefited Bitcoin, the traditional rotation into more innovative and riskier projects has already begun to show, with Ethereum once again flirting with its all-time highs. In this video, I'm going to talk about the project that allows companies like Circle, Tether, Stripe, and even governments to launch their own Layer 1 blockchains. The blockchainization and tokenization of companies and assets represent a multi-billion-dollar market, and yet, the foundational project I'm about to share with you still flies under the radar. It not only created the Internet of Enterprise blockchains, but also application-specific blockchains for which it is more widely known. Simply put, in this video, my goal is to introduce you to the Cosmos revolution. We've heard a lot about it in recent years, but no one has really explained it clearly. Today, I'm going to show you what some of the world's top developers have spent years building. In the early days, they stood alongside Vitalik and other pioneers before dedicating several years to creating blockchain infrastructure that only now is beginning to reveal its full potential. Cosmos was born from what is called the Cosmos Hub. Today, its project is the best positioned to provide new entrants, whether states, stablecoin issuers, companies, or other sovereign organizations, with standardized and battle-tested access to blockchain infrastructure. Yet, the blockchain considered the most secure and with the highest TVL is Ethereum. The advantage rollups have long held lies in their native bridge to Ethereum through their proof system. The narrative used to be that Ethereum had the monopoly on RWA tokenization on its layer 1 and enterprise blockchain adoption through rollups. Today, with both the most mature blockchain stack and an interchain interoperability standard compatible with Ethereum, the Cosmos SDK and IBC Eureka are becoming increasingly obvious choices for more and more giants of traditional finance. In crypto's history, this new frontier of token issuance first appeared in the form of tokenization of crypto-native blockchains, with Bitcoin and a series of proof-of-work blockchain copies. The problem was that each fork, differentiated by its primitives, was isolated and unable to benefit from one another. The simplest, most independent, and most fundamental of these primitives survived, and that is Bitcoin. The issuance of new cryptocurrencies, or tokenization, was later simplified by the development of applications in the form of smart contracts on Ethereum. Their applications and application tokens are composable. MakerDAO's stablecoin can be traded on the Uniswap DEX and used as collateral on Compound to borrow ETH. The issuance of tokens and the primitives created are composable without permission and secured by Ethereum's world computer. This is a major breakthrough for all the projects seeking to replicate the primitives of finance through code, while simultaneously tokenizing their governance in order to decentralize it and finance their development. The tokenization of real-world assets by companies became possible, but here it remained very limited and risky for enterprises. This is because the permissionless use of assets issued by contracts and potentially malicious actors created problems. Moreover, the control, execution, and security of these assets lay in the hands of Ethereum, not to mention the usage fees, which are an issue for companies focused on profitability and operating margins. It quickly became clear that the real challenge was no longer just asset tokenization, but enterprise blockchainization. Then came 2020, when the first forms of blockchain standards emerged, with Ethereum's sharding designed to address the earlier issues, namely lack of scalability and lack of control. Ultimately, this project of building multiple layer 1s in parallel, which would constitute the shards of Ethereum, was deemed too complex. A less scalable and less controllable, but more achievable, version emerged instead. These are what we now know as rollups. In parallel with Ethereum's shifting roadmap, there was a team of visionary developers addressing the different problems blockchain infrastructure would inevitably face: scalability, sovereignty, interoperability. From the very beginning, they started developing the pioneering project Atom, designed to be the blockchain standard for building an ecosystem of interconnected layer 1s, scaling horizontally and fully sovereign. This is Cosmos. It's worth noting that even before the Cosmos stack was used for the public Cosmos Hub blockchain, and from there, everything began to expand. Public blockchain services started connecting with more than 100 blockchains to date. The sovereignty of projects and their independence from the Ethereum stack made it possible to go further and innovate at every layer of the stack. Development is carried out in an open source and decentralized manner, with projects building on one another to push progress even further. On the other side, some exchanges are using the stack, while others are connecting to Cosmos and actively contributing to the development of the stack. Terra Luna collapses. Circle launches its Noble blockchain to issue its USDC stablecoin, The company dYdX decentralizes its protocol for regulatory reasons on a Cosmos chain. One of the largest Asian banks, along with other enterprises, announces their blockchain development on Cosmos. We even made a video about it at the time. Today, 5 years after its launch, the Cosmos Hub plays a role not only in interoperability but also in deployment and shared security. All this without compromising the sovereignty of each chain, which remains entirely modular and controllable. The Hub will be able to commercialize its network of professional validators, its IBC relayers, its multi-consensus ZK proof system, its Slinky Oracle integrated into Consensus, its interchain swap and bridge API skip, and all the modules developed by Cosmos engineers. This includes the maintenance, updates, and adaptation of the different versions of Tendermint, Comet BFT, Malachite, to the EVM Cosm and Cosmos SDK virtual machines. Cosmos Hub offers developers and enterprises everything they need to launch their own customized competitive blockchain, fully compatible with the best distribution tool for their product, IBC. Cosmos Hub is backed by Interchain Labs, one of the most important resources in addition to everything else we'll be discussing. Historically, their job has been to make their clients' blockchains special with a deeper understanding of the stack and the product than even the client's own development team. Formerly known as Skip, they chose to continue this work alongside the Interchain Foundation, adding to their talent a treasury of more than $200 million, as well as the tools provided by Cosmos Hub. This time, they are tackling a much larger market, institutional blockchains. An enterprise is not going to be interested in the so-called neutrality of Ethereum, controlled by a group of cypherpunks. What matters to them is the distribution tool of the layer with the highest TVL and user base. With the Cosmos chain, not only do they get direct access to this layer 1 via IBC Eureka, but they can also control those flows through their own validators aligned with their local jurisdiction. Most importantly, they aren't locked into a single environment that could easily lose its top spot in terms of users or TVL. Why limit yourself to a single environment when you can focus on building the best product and reach users wherever they are via IBC? In terms of distribution, Cosmos is the best option, especially if that distribution needs to be controlled and remain within a legal framework. The Cosmos stack makes sense not only for building blockchains, but also for its interoperability standard, IBC, which is the only one that offers control over inflows and outflows. Cosmos provides sovereign and separate environments with asynchronous communication that is therefore modular and controllable, enabling permissioned and secure composability. Enterprise blockchains will prefer to place their trust in actors whose reputation, interests, stake, and track record they can judge for themselves. They also have the option of partial or majority control over the validator set. For example, by limiting themselves to 1/3 of the validator's voting power, the entity would be able to halt the chain without being able to corrupt consensus. Between a private or semi-private blockchain, different types of trade-offs are possible, but all of them can rely on the security of the Cosmos Hub validators to guarantee a neutral counterparty in cross-chain exchanges through cross-chain validation enabled by PSS, partial set security. The Cosmos blockchain can also define the type of transactions it chooses to include in its mempool while keeping a fixed leader validator, despite the existence of a decentralized and neutral consensus. To illustrate this, let's take the example of this variant of Comet BFT in a version where a single leader is randomly designated. Monad BFT centralizes execution while still maintaining distributed consensus. Monad specifically designed it to maximize performance and reduce latency. However, if one chooses not to apply leader rotation by fixing this role to a validator controlled by the enterprise, or in the case where the enterprise chooses to control 1/3 of the validators, rotating among them to ensure fault tolerance, the result is a system that enables selective censorship and therefore regulatory compliant control, but without the possibility of validating fraud. The Cosmos stack is ideally positioned to enable sovereign enterprise networks that remain compliant with regulations. This blend of customization and fully controllable infrastructure is the reason why projects are choosing Cosmos. For example, Figure Technology, behind the Provenance blockchain, which operates large-scale regulated loan settlements supported by 160 institutions. It generated $191 million in revenue in the first half of 2025. Ondo, which tokenizes stocks, ETFs, and other more niche products from traditional finance. Lombard, which uses Bitcoin as collateral for capital markets, whether DeFi or institutional. ZigChain, providing individuals with access to global stock markets. Backed by a $100 million ecosystem fund supported by DWF Labs, they recently announced a strategic partnership with Apex Group, which manages $3.4 trillion to tokenize real-world assets. This adoption by the giants of finance, bringing their activities on-chain through their own blockchains, positions itself right at the frontier of decentralized finance. We are living through a key moment where on-chain finance and decentralized finance converge within this internet of blockchains. This convergence is made possible by the maturity of the modular standards of sovereign blockchains, but also by the enthusiasm or even euphoria of investors toward crypto companies, supported both by favorable US policy and by a tremendous market opportunity. In this landscape, Circle and MicroStrategy appear as emblematic yet passive actors. The former by tokenizing the largest asset in traditional finance, the US dollar, the latter by financializing the largest asset in crypto, Bitcoin. Assets issued on an institutional chain can reach new destinations via the IBC, Interblockchain Communication Protocol. Between enterprises, settlements can take place in stablecoins, but they can also flow into DeFi platforms and benefit from the liquidity and user base that public blockchains have to offer. For a conservative private blockchain that wants to limit and control access to its chain while still leveraging outside opportunities to deliver a better product, the interchain account ICA of Cosmos will be incredibly powerful. Private blockchains that integrate this module gain the ability to leverage all interchain services unilaterally through external contract calls without the user or institution ever having to move their capital outside of the regulated zone. Once again, we see that the Cosmos stack was designed with independent and institutional actors in mind. A Cosmos chain could whitelist addresses and chains compliant with regulations in order to control inflows and the types of authorized interactions, while still taking advantage of liquidity, swaps, collateralization, data feeds, restaking, intents, and other services offered by the interchain. Another striking example is the use of Babylon, which enables BTC to be used as collateral while applying slashing and DeFi liquidation conditions defined by institutional actors, all without the BTC ever leaving its own blockchain. The Cosmos Hub, as well as all other nearby interchain services, will be able to benefit from a massive influx of capital into the market. In the internet of blockchains, many hubs coexist, each with their own specific services. Atom as the zone of neutrality and shared security, Anoma for its interchain intent engine, Celestia for interchain verifiability, Nelion for private data storage and computation across chains, Namada for private transfers of sensitive data between semi-private or public chains, Noble for interchain stablecoin issuance and settlement, Cycle for clearing debts, Seda for its oracle, Polaris for interchain account and chain abstraction, Osmosis for liquidity and multi-chain asset aggregation. I'll stop here, but the list goes on. A big thank you to Cytozone and DoorHacks for giving me the incentive to work on this video. I especially appreciate the freedom they gave me, with no imposed topic, allowing me to share the message I truly wanted to deliver. Given the limited time, I wasn't able to include the second part, which dives deeper into the thesis of the Internet of Blockchains and the dialectic of Cosmos. As with this video, if I receive another incentive or sponsorship, I'll prioritize editing it. Otherwise, I'll focus on another video I've already been working on for over a month. Either way, we'll see each other again very soon, Cosmonauts.